This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network, an extension of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.
Potters, are you looking for high-quality equipment and supplies? Since 1974, Bailey Pottery Equipment, based in Kingston, New York, has produced equipment used in schools, universities, and art centers nationwide. Their gas kilns, renowned for ease of use, fuel efficiency, and beautiful results, are a global favorite. Bailey Pottery Equipment caters to all skill levels, offering a range of equipment and top brand ceramic supplies at discounted prices, all backed by their outstanding personal service. Visit BaileyPottery.com, the professional's choice for all things clay.
Hey folks, Sunshine Cobb here, ceramic artist and current resident coordinator at the Bray. I'm excited to announce that our application portal is now open for our 2025 residency cohort. Applications are due by December 19th, 2024. For details on all our residencies available, head to archibray.org/residencies. Please help us spread the word about this amazing new opportunity at the Bray. Thanks so much.
Hello, my name is Kathy King, and welcome to the For Flux Sake podcast. I'm coming to you from the Harvard Ceramics program in our fair city, Allston, Massachusetts. I'm here with Rose and Matt Katz of the world-famous Ceramic Materials Workshop, and they are ready to answer your burning questions about clay and glaze. Hello, Matt and Rose.
Hi, Kathy.
Hello, Kathy.
It's so good to see you again.
Oh, the wonderful to be here.
So, I was wondering, it's been a while, but should we take a drive-by materials corner? Do you have any hot topics? News.
Wait, you want to depress the listeners already? Or or is this going to be more upbeat, Matt? I don't know.
It's just, I'd rather just know the pain coming.
That's true. Yeah, you can see it down the road. Could swerve in time.
That storm coming. Well, let's take a trip down to Materials Corner. Yeah, there is some news. I don't have a ton of information on this one, but it's been published to the internet, so that you know that's a fact.
Oh yeah.
Yes, totally.
It's on the interwebs. There we go.
As we have here in the States all been suffering through the loss of Custer Feldspar, and then we've had the flood of imported potassium feldspars. Again, for the background, for those who haven't followed around, Custer Feldspar was the last American potassium-based feldspar, and potassium feldspar are incredibly important because they're in a lot of glazes, but they are also the primary feldspar in all clay bodies. You really need potassium feldspars to get your clay bodies to flux. So this has been a huge problem because Custer sort of disappeared rather quickly. It was sort of like the announcement went up.
It was rude, very rude.
And that's a big problem because, of course, all the clay manufacturers were relying on a lot of Custer feldspar to make their clay bodies, and then suddenly it was just gone, poof, and it disappeared. So there was a big scramble in 2023 to try to find different sources. There were, at that time, some potassium feldspars that was already being imported. Hamel and Gillespie on the East Coast was importing G200 EU, which was a feldspar from Spain. That's what the EU part is. G200 used to be an American feldspar that mine ran out, and so they just took the name and slapped it on a feldspar from Spain and started importing it. And Laguna, the supplier on the West Coast, started importing a feldspar from India called Mahavir. And those were sort of the two backup feldspars that we had going in opposition to Custer. When Custer disappeared, everyone lost their freaking minds because the clay manufacturers didn't have the potassium feldspar that they needed. And then that dried up the market for Mahavir and G200 EU. We were told about month-long waits from clay manufacturers to get the feldspar that they needed just to make clay to get to you. So that was all disaster. So in the interim, a couple of shifts have happened. Imris, who owns the G200 brand, has started to bring in a feldspar from India called G200 number 2R. I still haven't seen that one on the market, but I've seen the documentation. It's real. It's coming if it hasn't made it yet. Mahavir was also from India. Then Laguna decided to bring in a second feldspar because they couldn't get enough Mahavir. So they started bringing this one called Vardam. Vardam we do have. I've tested with it. I got a test file right here by my recording desk. With some glazes we've tested with some Vardam. Rose went to pick up raw materials for the lab a couple weeks ago, and they had Vardam in stock. Seems like it's
got
fine.
6 bags of it.
6 bags. Yeah, it's working just fine. Actually, these Indian feldspars are pretty nice. They have pretty close to ideal potassium feldspar chemistries, which, as we talked about with Custer in the past, it didn't. And so Custer
Although I do have to say, those bags are pretty awful.
I thought they were going to switch those over from the kind of, I don't know, it's not burlap. Well, it's kind of like burlap. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a woven plastic. It's awful. The 6 bags
It's
that
dusty.
I do have
Yeah,
are
it's
awful.
dusty.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're listening, clay manufacturers, please switch it to a paper bag, please.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what we've been told, that Mahavir, when it does sort of get back to the market, Mahavir sort of disappeared because I think Laguna's using it for their own clay production, so that they can keep making clay. But yeah, the paper bags I have been told are coming with Mahavir. So that's definitely a thing. But so I was just alerted by a friend that there is now another, so this makes it our 5th substitution potassium feldspar that is now available here in the States.
I like it. We got variety.
As long as this is all really straightforward, I think it's great. Yeah.
It's very straightforward because, yeah, there's no confusion at all. But this one is called K11, and it is specifically being brought in by US Pigments, who is a material supply company in the Chicagoland area. They generally are known for selling stains and frits, and they don't sell clay. They don't make their own clay, but just sort of acting as a material supplier. And so they've been bringing in this one called K11. It is up on their website. So it is available for sale. They have a picture of the bag. It doesn't say a lot. I Googled that name, K11. I found one material mining company in India who references the name K11, but the chemistry that they list doesn't match what US Pigments lists. The chemistry of it that US Pigments has listed looks fine, I will say. Yeah, how do I say these things? I am skeptical of the accuracy of the chemical analysis they have listed. I would sure love an independent lab assessment of that. They have 0 residual calcium listed. Their numbers are real ideal for a potassium feldspar, and yeah, we'll just say I'm skeptical that those are the actual numbers, which honesty is important. I'm choking. But if you want to make it in the materials game, let's be real honest, everybody, with what's out there. I'm not saying what they're publishing is not honest. I'm just saying it's a little too clean and a little too the real what it may actually be. But I don't know. We'll see if we can get any and get a chemical analysis on it.
And again, can you go over again how getting the closest thing to Custer is more important for clay manufacture than it is necessarily for recalculating a glaze that we might have in the studio?
Right. Well, the big problem is, so when we talk about any raw material, right, just the name feldspar, that's defined by a geologist, and that is a rock that has a specific chemistry. That's what makes that rock that rock. Okay, that's the sort of basis of it. And there is the ideal world chemistry that theoretically a feldspar, which is a rock, but a rock is just a collection of molecules, that molecule will have 6 molecules of silica, 1 molecule of alumina, and 1 molecule potassium. That is in the ideal world. In the real world, nothing has that because they're all naturally occurring, so there's little variations here and there. The real contrast with Custer isn't that we need to match it so far, but Custer as a feldspar was actually very low purity. It was the farthest I have ever seen of a feldspar from that perfect chemistry. That's not a problem. It doesn't make it ideal for working with it. But what it means is all these Indian feldspars or Spanish feldspars, all these international feldspars that are coming in, that they are not a one-to-one substitution for what people were used to with their compositions with Custer Feldspar. And so now they've got to go back and re-engineer all their clay bodies so that they vitrify and melt and go through the process the same and have the same thermal expansion. And so when all these people are saying, well, this is the substitute for Custer, like, is it the same basic thing? Yeah, but it's like, getting the American cheese at the grocery store and getting your fancy imported French cheese and going, they're both cheese.
No one said no one ever.
Yeah, so it's just something. We'll see how this goes. We'll see how the material supply shakes out. Although this is a story that started almost a year ago, it is going to take a while to shake out, for the favorites to rise to the top, to see who's supplying what.
Well, it's just like the talc too. I mean, it's ever changing there still too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it sucks that we have to import this stuff. It changes our supply. I will say that the benefit of all these other feldspars is they are technically better than what Custer was. Those who've been listening for a long time know I didn't love Custer. Like, yes, it's cheap, but it wasn't great. So it's a benefit, but it's a benefit with complications.
Oh, goodness. I mean, I'm cheering on all the clay manufacturers. I'd just say, funnel anything good to them so we can have some consistency back, for goodness sakes.
Well, I mean, we could use a few bags here and there. Don't hoard it all yourself.
Well, okay. All right, y'all. Let's get to some fabulous, thought-provoking questions.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, our first question comes from Tiffany from Long Beach, California. And Tiffany wants to know about myths around venting.
Hi, for Flux Sake. This is Tiffany from Long Beach, California. Just wanted to say that I love the podcast, love you, Matt and Rose, but I especially love you, Kathy. You are so fun, so funny, and bring an extra something special to the podcast. So thank you all for everything you do, and I learn a lot. And I'm hoping to learn more today after I ask my question. And it comes from a Facebook group that I follow. Your answer is probably going to be, don't follow Facebook groups. But I do, so I'm going to ask it anyway. The woman on the Facebook group asked, I need advice on venting my kiln in my basement. Is it necessary? Everybody came after her, and there was tons of answers ranging from, your carbon monoxide alarm will go off. Your fire alarm will go off. It'll be so hot, it'll be like living in hell. You will get fumes and you will die from those fumes. You should just open a window. You should just open a door. You should drill a hole in the top. You should drill a hole in the bottom. You should use thoughts and prayers. Somebody even mentioned that it's not about the air actually going to the outside of the building. It's the air moving through the kiln itself. And if you don't have a vent, that your glazes won't come out properly. So I was thinking about it, and I actually had a kiln technician here at my home the other day because I just moved studios and I wanted to make sure my kiln was in working order. And he mentioned, and I actually asked, do I need to have a vent here? I have a door right next to it. So I thought, I can just open the door if I need to vent anything out with no problems. And he mentioned that would be fine. And he recommended leaving the top peephole out. And at the time, of course, I just looked at him and opened my eyes real wide and nodded and was like, yes, that is what I will do. But I didn't ask why. So I remember in previous podcasts, you, Matt and Rose, mentioning that you don't vent often. And I thought about that, and I responded to the post mentioning you, kind of blaming you for why I'm answering it that way. And, referenced it and just kind of talked like, I don't think you necessarily need to vent out of it. It's, commercial glazes don't, and I kind of went along that, and I'm like, I don't really know what I'm talking about. And then I posted it, and then I went through all the 5 stages of grief thinking that I'm just going to get pummeled here. So I deleted the post. So I'm going to ask you here instead. What is your advice on venting? When is it necessary? Kind of the what's, when, where, how, why kind of thing, and kind of bust some of these myths that people are talking about. I would really appreciate it. I appreciate your time and everything you do. Thank you so, so much.
Wow, Tiffany. I mean, in addition to having excellent taste in people, thank you for taking us on that ride. Oh my goodness, Facebook groups sound terrifying.
Yeah. Hey, producer Ben, do me a favor.
Yeah.
Yeah, get the bleep button ready. Hey, Facebook, shut the fuck up. Just shut up. If you are not an expert in this subject, nobody needs your opinion. Okay, because that's all that y'all are spinning. Oh my God.
Matt rant coming.
Take a deep breath, Matt. Yeah. It's going to be okay.
Calm down. Hold on. Do you need to step
Tiffany's
away
okay.
for a second?
Yeah.
But the chicken little's on Facebook. Like this,
I know,
this nonsense.
but you can say any subject and there's going to be that type of...
That's the whole reality of all social media.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
But their defense is, oh, well, we're just trying to keep you safe. Or you're just being paranoid and delusional because you're afraid of things and you don't know. And it's easier to invoke safety theater when you don't know the answer. And it's exhausting. And as people that have been doing this for years, of like, yeah, it's exhausting. And I Tiffany, you have my sympathy. So let's lay it out. We've talked about this before. And, I've certainly, said my piece that, yeah, there's nothing that you need to do to vent. There is no benefit to venting. All of our kilns are unvented.
Oh, whoa. One exception. Yeah.
Go ahead.
One exception. Our gas kiln is vented.
Yes.
We have a chimney that goes through the second floor up the roof. I'm looking at the chimney right now. It's a little warm to the touch today.
It is. We fired it last night, and Rose is in the second floor above the chimney.
Yeah, it's a little warm. Yeah.
Oops. But I think Tiffany's probably talking about electric. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounded like she was talking about electric.
Well, to that point, when do you need to vent? Okay, when must you vent? Gas kilns or any type of kiln that uses fuel for combustion must be vented. That is not optional. Okay, the kiln won't even work if it's not vented, much less. But yeah, you have to vent your gas kilns. Now, some people, when I've made our statements about not venting, will throw a couple of variables at me, which I will give them credit for. The first one is if you are doing China painting or luster firings, yes, you do need to have some sort of venting system for that kiln. Especially the luster firings are relying on a reduction reaction. What's actually going on is that you've got a soluble metal salt suspended in oil, and that oil, when it burns, creates reduction, which then reduces the metal salt back into the base metal form. And that is a reduction reaction. So you do need that vented. That is true. Okay. So yes, if you are firing luster or you plan on firing luster, that requires venting. I won't get into the debate of how you vent it, but again, yeah, if you've got open doors and windows and fans, again, and not being near it while it's firing, if you don't have proper venting, is worth considering. The other one that people have thrown at me, I am less sympathetic towards, which is I have had some people send me videos of their kilns literally drooling during a bisque firing because of the water pouring out of their bisqueware. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, I will give you that. If you are bisquing and you have not dried the work completely, you are extracting water vapor from the work, which will condense. And that'll get everywhere. It'll get inside the bricks. It'll move from the bricks to the shell of the kiln, the metal shell, and it'll sweat and drip. And that's gross. I can't say how it's dangerous electrically, but I've seen it dripping out of electrical control boxes, and that's bad. I mean, again, I'm not an electrical engineer. engineer.
We have a Fredrickson front-loading electric. It's got a train on it, and that one definitely. We had two fan. It had a vent system with two fans in the back. We thought, well, let's just do one. We'll get away with it. And completely after a year, it was just dripping all the time from the moisture. And so we did end up putting the second fan on, and it's worked perfectly fine. In our studio, we have 8 electric kilns, and those are all vented going individually into one pipe or chimney going up to the roof that has a fan that's pulling that exhaust out of the building. And that was what, I was told, I wasn't there at the time, but what we were told to put in. And for the variety of things that get burned up in these kilns, whether it's newspaper inside Mr. Piggly Wiggly, sculpture, or different things we've wedged into our clay, it does work for us.
Yeah. And that's the last one of, if you are really actively burning stuff out of your clay, yeah, fine. You are releasing carbon forms, which could turn into carbon dioxide and possibly carbon monoxide, and that could be a problem. So under all of those conditions, should those be vented? Yes, those should be vented. Now, again, I'm less sympathetic to the water one. Public studios, you definitely have my sympathy, because you got to deal with what the students do. If you are responsible for your own firing, try your work. Just get it dry, and then you don't have it. Our work goes in completely and utterly dry, so we don't have water in our kiln, so it doesn't really matter. So, okay, all that said, if you have got just clay and just glazes, there's nothing going on there, people. Now, is stuff coming out of your clay and your raw materials? Yeah. Right? When you have
people always
carbon.
mention sulfurs, Matt. Talk about that.
Actually, we have one kiln that has a port in the top that's like kind of green on the outside. That's interesting.
And it's the kiln that we use for bisquing. And that, yes, on the port on that one, yeah, some sulfur will build up because the sulfur vaporizes. And it will come to the surface and it'll make a little deposit. We have done, let's see, how long have we had that kiln? We have probably done 800 firings in that kiln. And we have got a crust of sulfur that's, about the thickness of your fingernail. Are you releasing some sulfur into the atmosphere? Sure. Is there going to be carbon dioxide coming out of your pots? Absolutely. If you are dealing with carbonates, calcium carbonate, any of the other carbonates like that, yeah, they break down and release carbon dioxide. The carbon monoxide in an electric kiln is a much more spurious concept that is going to be what's happening, because the carbon dioxide is literally coming from calcium carbonate. It's calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So could you possibly releasing calcium monoxide? Yes. But let me tell you, and all the ones that Tiffany is saying of, the fire alarm's going to go off, the carbon monoxide is going to go off. We have got smoke detectors directly above our kilns with built-in carbon monoxide detectors. I have also installed a secondary carbon monoxide and dioxide detector directly next to our 2 biggest electric kilns. And does the carbon dioxide go up when we fire? Yeah, it does. But it's not anywhere that are in dangerous levels. And it's just what's going to happen, and it will disperse throughout the room. The atmosphere is full of carbon dioxide, okay, and sulfur and nitrogen, and those are the things that are coming off. And that really is all that it is. Now, are some people going to listen to this and they're going to say, well, no materials exposure is good materials exposure? Fine. That's not the real world. I was driving our electric vehicle down the road, and I was sitting there with my windows open because it was a beautiful day, and this nasty diesel car came by, and all I could smell is disgusting diesel fumes that came into my car. The world is full of all of that kind of stuff. But what is being released from your kiln in a normal standard firing is so minimal and so irrelevant that it really is nothing to worry about. Is it happening? Absolutely. Is it a problem? In no way.
We just have our carbon monoxide units in the gas kiln area, and Harvard does send someone to check those periodically to make sure that they're operating correctly. But there's nothing on that we were required to put in on the electric kiln side in regards to that.
Gas kilns, can you make carbon monoxide? Absolutely. Electric kilns. The only other thing I'll say about the benefits of venting is, we have a Frederickson kiln like yours, and I love it. It's great. It cools down very slowly. It is very tight and big. It has a big metal jacket. Would venting that make it cool down faster? Yeah, absolutely it would. It's really funny. Actually, Rose is saying how it's hot where she's recording today. That's because last night we fired our gas kiln and our Frederickson kiln. Well, the gas kiln has a vent, and it actually has a cooling cycle where it keeps blowing cool air through it.
Yeah, that one was nice and cool this morning. I unloaded
Room
it.
temperature.
The Freddy kiln, still hot.
It's still over 1,000 degrees. I literally went to one kiln, started it, went to the other kiln and started it. And it's just because the heat, it just holds the heat in very effectively. But the venting, will it push the heat away? Sure. Is it a benefit to degassing or whatever people say? Not really. Now, I will say there's only one piece of literature I have ever really come across with this. Lots of people say they want to do studies. No one ever does. It's not my area, but there is a paper, Exposure to Pottery Kiln Emissions, by Robert Hurdle, which was published it's just an undergraduate study that they did in 1976. It really isn't a huge thing. And it basically says you're going to release a bunch of this stuff. It's really minor, and, you can move on. There really is no particular threat. And it's not what people make it out to be. I appreciate people's concerns. Please don't think that I'm just being completely dismissive. I just don't have the energy for the paranoia. It's just too much. Be sensible, everybody.
Yeah. When we got our new studio, they came in and put the carbon monoxide detectors on our staff and just had everyone go through a normal kind of process of, loading and unloading electric kilns and firing gas kilns. And so we just kind of timed it that a lot of activity was going on at that same time. And it was really, and that illustrated that the only issue that had come up was on the gas side, and then that informed them on what setting to keep our to get an idea of what's too much, so anyway,
and that's it. Of it's so contextual to just how the chemistry works, and that's amazing that you said that it was the carbon monoxide would change with the gas kiln. Because the other thing that you'll hear people say, and actually I think it came up a little bit in Tiffany's, is, oh, well, you need oxygen. You need to supply oxygen into your electric kiln to get these chemical reactions to happen. No, you don't. Okay. First of all, there's plenty of oxygen in your electric kiln. Electric kilns are inherently porous, and air can move in and out through the bricks and through the work. And those chemical reactions are going to happen. They do not need oxygen to induce that chemical reaction. You need oxygen to complete a combustion reaction, which is what's going on in the gas kiln. But all those reactions in your clay are just going to happen. Like, if anybody here has ever used a material, calcined clay, that goes by the brand name Glomax, that happens by heating up your clay and driving off the chemically bound water in that clay molecule. Great. If you just fire it, it's going to happen. That's the way chemistry happens. You take materials and temperature and it will happen, but you do not need to supply oxygen. So pushing oxygen or drawing oxygen into your kiln isn't going to make anything cleaner. And the last one is, no, it doesn't make a difference with dark bodies. Dark bodies do not need oxygen to do what they're going to do or to cause the problems that they're going to cause. The oxygen that causes the problem in those dark bodies is already in the dark bodies. And that's what's coming out that causes all the bubbling problems. So,
but you're jumping into a whole other can of worms. Don't do that.
Well, I'll bring you back. So just real quick, the larger Frederickson kiln that we have, if we there's a faction of people who will leave notes and they don't want their cone 6 going into that one. And they want it to go into a normal, scut barrel kiln, right? Because they believe that slow cooling makes some of the glazes react differently.
Yes, to a degree, but sort of no. Done. Good answer.
Well, what's making them look different then?
glazes that can crystallize, and they are a very specific chemistry of glaze. Not all glazes will do this. We say the term crystalline glaze, and everybody thinks of the big zinc silicate starburst glazes. Those are just one type of crystalline glaze. There's a whole world of them out there. Crystalline glazes will grow or do grow their crystals on the cooling cycle. And the slower that the kiln cools, the more time those crystals have the opportunity to grow. Okay, that is a fact. And so the reason why people think glazes look different in a gas kiln is because gas kilns tend to cool much more slowly because they have big, thick walls. And so they will hold the heat in longer. The electric kilns, the barrel style kilns, have very thin walls. So the heat just dumps out and they cool very quickly. So you don't get those effects, and people will fake it by quote unquote slow cooling. The Frederickson kilns have big, thick walls in an electric kiln. So they will hold the heat in longer naturally. The real catch-all, though, with the Freddy kilns is that they actually dump the high temperature heat pretty quickly. So, if I say start our Frederickson kiln along with our barrel kiln, and they got to peak temperature at the same time, they will both, they'll both complete their firing, and then the heat just dumps out, right? Because heat goes to cold. That's the basic concept of thermodynamics. So nothing wants to stay hot. So the heat dumps out, and then the kilns will drop pretty quickly down to about 950 C. Well, 950 C, which is, I don't know F. Somebody quick get a calculator.
Yes, we know you don't know F.
I know. That it's about cone 08. Under that temperature, all of our glaze materials have solidified in basically every glaze that you're going to work with. And so it can no longer crystallize. It no longer has atomic mobility. So the crystals can't form. Well, the highest temperatures in our kiln dump out the fastest. And so those two kilns will pretty much get to 900 at about the same rate. The problem with the Frederickson kiln is that it's under 900 where it keeps holding that heat in and it doesn't cool down. Like what I do, and Freddie's told me it's okay, is that when the kiln gets down under 300 C, which is like 600 F, that's when I start to crack the door and just to let the heat out. In fact, I traumatized Rose when I first got the kiln because I burned all the paint above the door.
Oh, no.
Yes. It's all brown instead of gray.
Oh.
Like, really? Goodness. Like 2 firings in and it's already looks brown.
Oh, man.
But it does get the kiln down to room temperature much more quickly because those low temperatures are the ones that hold on. So are people getting a slightly different crystallization reaction in the Frederickson? Yeah, if you pack it full of student work and it's solid, thick inside, then yeah, it certainly might be a problem. But at the end of the day, they should be relatively the same.
All right. Well, let us switch directions, and we have a written question from Lori. Don't know where Lori's from, but Lori's got a real problem, people. Lori wrote, "There's a weird yellow precipitate that has been forming in the bottom of our commercial glaze buckets. We noticed it this May after re-sieving our glaze that was made in December of 2023. What is this crud? Can we do anything to prevent it from forming?" I have to say, we're going to tell everybody to look at the photo of this on the
We'll put it
blog.
Up
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's gross. Well, it's really gross. I don't know what this is.
It looks like mouse pellets.
It does. It kind of looks like popcorn kernels or like seeds.
Yeah. She said commercial. She said it was commercial glaze.
She did say commercial.
And like now I've used commercial glazes that get like kind of a crusty crystalline thing going around like the lid. And it's a little crunchy when you put it on. I can't think of like which one exactly, but I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I've seen the black creeper that grows in red underglazes, and I've seen a lot of things, people, but I've never seen this.
I have seen something similar. In that this is probably what is commonly called an oolite, Oolite. And if you look at the Wikipedia entry for oolites, you will see they're little spherical tan brown deposits of soluble material. Now, I will say that it is actually funny to see what is very possibly oolites in a ceramic thing, because one of the constant refrains I have when I get asked questions like this by our online students is, it's not an oolite. It's like, what was that movie? Kindergarten Cop. It's not a tumor.
It's not
an oolite.
I was going to ask producer Ben to Google this because I feel like you've snapped and you're just making this up. At this point.
Oolites are real. The catch is that
are.
oolites are commonly calcium carbonate, and it's very hard to precipitate calcium carbonate out of our glazes because it's not all that soluble. So you need calcium from another source that is soluble, and then it combines with carbon dioxide to form the oolites. And the oolites they're spheroids, I guess you'd say. What you commonly see with solubles is a crystal that looks like a snowflake under a microscope. Yeah, so there you go.
Wow.
Producer Ben Scott. We'll put up some links to oolites. Go to the first picture on Wikipedia too, Ben. There you go. Those look more like what the question picture is.
They look like white nerds.
Vanilla flavored.
Yeah, vanilla flavored.
Oh, the candy.
Really bland nerds. Yeah.
Vanilla flavored nerds.
Yeah.
Vanilla's a flavor,
Yum.
everybody. So yeah, they're precipitated calcium carbonate. Most of the time, though, you will see these precipitates, the ones I'm always saying aren't oolites, that are usually a lithium borate that you will get from glazes that have lithium carbonate in them, and then some soluble boron, and those look like a snowflake under a microscope, or like a high intensity picture where they're more like hexagonal.
And they're like octa or hexagonal. Yeah, they're different. They're not rounded like that. But it's interesting that she said that she noticed them re-sieving from a glaze that's made in December.
Right.
So that's key right there. Ding, ding, ding. Cold weather tends to precipitate certain things in your glaze.
And it would create oolites?
Good. Yeah.
Well, it'll create precipitates. So what Rose is saying is about water solubility and temperature. Okay, so we all know water dissolves stuff, right? You put sugar into your coffee and it quote unquote disappears. It doesn't disappear, it changes its physical structure and goes into what is called solution. Right? So we have differences in glazes. We have solutions, which are when something dissolves, or we have suspensions. Our glazes are traditionally suspensions. We're taking materials, minerals, and we are suspending them in water. Whereas a solution, it dissolves. Now, we should not be using materials that are water soluble in our glazes because it dissolves with the water, it then travels with the water. And so the water goes into the bisqueware. That's why pots applications dry so fast, because the water it's sucked into the bisqueware like a sponge. And so those materials are no longer there. That said, are there lots of glaze recipes out there that use water soluble materials? Yeah, there's a lot. Are commercial glaze companies going to use ingredients that are water soluble? Apparently they are.
Oolites don't lie. Lori's got a bad case
of the oolites. Yeah, and so what's going on is that they're using something water soluble. I don't know what it is. That's the hard problem. I can't diagnose what this actually is because I don't have the recipe for the commercial glaze, but they're using something water soluble. And as Rose is saying, when the temperature goes down, solubility goes down. So the water can't hold as much of that dissolved material and it precipitates out. So, right now it's the fall, and guess what, everybody? As your studios start getting colder and colder, a lot of you are going to find some chunky crystal coming out of your glazes when you re-sieve them, and there's not a thing you can do about it because it happened. Yeah. And wow. You can't recycle them. A lot of people are like, oh, you dissolve in water, you crush them back up. Don't even waste your time. It's not even worth it. They're gone.
It's good.
Bye-bye, Oolites. Bye-bye. Wow.
Got a nice little collection of Oolites.
Those are beautiful.
I am going to inject the word Oolite into so many different conversations today. It's not even funny. No one will know what I'm talking about, but
The
I
problem
just
is-
love saying it.
I just think you're just going to use it inappropriately. Kathy's going to go to like a cocktail party and say like, my cat had Oolites, and then just take a sip off her wine.
And just walk away.
Did you read a lot of Dr. Seuss today? Like, what's going on?
The Oolites and the Ghoulites were having a battle in the Oolite War.
So many different applications. Anyway, y'all, that is all the time we have for today. So we've learned a lot. Let's go rest our brains. And until next time, Rose and Matt. Bye.
Bye.
See you later, Kathy.
Well, folks, that's it for this week's episode of For Flux Sake. I'd like to thank the listeners who submitted questions this week. And if you want your question answered on the show, shoot us an email at ForFluxSakePodcast@gmail.com. So join us next time. And when in your studio, remember what Rose always says.
Always remember to test, test, test. This is a test of the emergency glaze system. Beep.